The worst part wasn't the screaming. It was the silence that came after. I'm watching it happen right now, through a wall of white so thick I can barely see Derek's taillights 50 yards ahead. My windshield wipers are losing the fight against the snow, and my hands are locked on the wheels so tight my knuckles ache. The radio crackles with static. Then Derek's voice cuts through, young and uncertain. "Jack, there's someone in the road." My stomach drops. We're at mile marker 47, middle of the exclusion zone, middle of a whiteout blizzard, middle of the night. And Derek just said the 5 words that mean everything is about to go wrong. "Do not stop," I bark into the handset, my voice harder than I intend. "Do not slow down." "But Jack, it's a person. They're standing there." I can hear the confusion in his voice, the basic human decency that's about to get him killed. I watch his brake lights flare red through the snow. He's slowing down. "Derek!" I scream into the radio, abandoning protocol, abandoning calm. "It is not a person. Drive through it. That's rule number 2. Drive through it." Static answers me. Then his voice again, quieter now, almost hypnotized. "They're not moving. I'm going to check if they need help." "No, Derek, listen to me." The radio goes dead. His plow sits there in the road, hazard lights blinking like a heartbeat, engine still running, exhaust billowing white into the storm. I can see the shape of his cab, the outline of his mirrors, the bright yellow paint of the Department of Transportation logo barely visible through the sideways snow. Everything looks normal. Everything looks wrong.
I accelerate, my own plow lurching forward, the blade scraping asphalt beneath 6 inches of fresh powder. The distance between us closes, 40 yards, 30. I'm screaming into the radio even though I know he can't hear me or won't answer, or worse, something else is listening. 20 yards. His driver's side door swings open. "Derek, no!" I see his boot hit the ground, dark against the snow, then his leg. Then he steps down fully, and the storm swallows him whole, just like that. 1 second he's there, a dark shape against the yellow cab. The next second, he's gone, erased by the blizzard like he was never there at all. I slam on my brakes, and my plow fishtails, the back end swinging wide. I correct, overcorrect, finally skid to a stop 10 yards behind his rig. My headlights cut through the snow, illuminating his open door, the empty driver's seat, his thermos still sitting on the dashboard. No Derek. No footprints in the snow leading away from the cab. Nothing but smooth, windswept white in every direction. I grab my radio, hand shaking so bad I nearly drop it. "Derek! Derek, answer me!" Static, wind, the metallic groan of my plow settling on its suspension. Then, faint and distant, muffled by the storm, his voice. "Jack, Jack, help me! I'm out here! I can't find the truck!" It's coming from somewhere off the road, maybe the tree line, maybe farther. The wind makes it hard to tell. It sounds like Derek. It sounds exactly like Derek, but I know it's not. I know because of rule number 9. If you hear your name called from outside, it's not real. I sit there in my cab, engine idling, heater blasting, watching Derek's empty plow through the snow. My breath fogs the windshield. My heart hammers against my ribs. And somewhere out there in the white, something that isn't Derek keeps calling my name. 3 weeks earlier, none of this had happened yet. 3 weeks earlier, Derek Holt was still alive, and I was sitting in the break room at the depot trying to enjoy my coffee before the kid showed up for his first day. Route 9 isn't like other roads. I've been plowing it for 19 years, and I still don't fully understand it. What I do understand is this. It's a 73-mile stretch of 2-lane highway that connects the town of Whittier on the coast to the inland community of Copper Valley. In summer, it's scenic. Mountains on both sides, forests of spruce and hemlock, the occasional glimpse of Dall sheep on the ridgelines. Tourists love it.
In winter, it becomes something else entirely. The Chugach Mountains funnel storms through the pass like water through a pipe. Blizzards roll in with zero warning. Avalanches close the road 3-4 times a season. Black ice forms in patches you can't see until you're already sliding. And the temperatures? Christ, the temperatures drop to 40 below on calm nights, colder when the wind picks up. The state of Alaska pays double for Route 9 drivers. Time and a half on weekends, double on holidays, and a quarterly bonus if you make it through the season without quitting. Sounds great on paper. The problem is, most people don't last. Last winter, we went through 7 drivers between November and March. The year before that, 5. They quit for all the usual reasons: too cold, too dangerous, too isolated, too boring. One guy made it 2 weeks before he had a panic attack at mile marker 30 and refused to drive past it ever again. Just turned his plow around, drove back to the depot, and never came back. Can't say I blame him. There are only 3 of us left who've been doing this long term. Me, Jack Fremont, 19 years on Route 9. Bill Carver, the depot supervisor, who drove it for 23 years before his frostbite got bad enough they moved him to a desk. And Tommy Canuck, a local Athabascan guy who's been plowing since before I was born and doesn't talk much about what he's seen out there. The state keeps hiring, and we keep training them, and they keep quitting. That's why when Bill told me we had a new guy starting, I didn't get my hopes up. Former military, Bill said, sliding a file across his desk. Army, logistics. Did a tour in Germany, another in South Korea. No combat, but he knows how to operate heavy equipment. References are solid. I flipped through the file. Derek Holt, 24 years old, originally from Oregon, moved to Alaska 8 months ago looking for work. Clean record, current on all his certifications. Photo showed a clean-cut kid with short blonde hair and the kind of confident smile that told me he thought he had everything figured out. He know about the rules? I asked. Bill's face tightened. He's missing 2 fingers on his left hand, pinky and ring finger, gone at the second knuckle. Frostbite, officially, but I've seen the scar tissue, the way it's puckered and uneven, and I've always suspected it wasn't the cold that took those fingers. He'll get the card same as everyone, Bill said. What he does with it is up to him. The card. Every Route 9 driver gets one on their first day. Laminated, about the size of a credit card, with 9 rules printed in small, precise text. No DOT logo, no state seal, nothing official, just the rules. Bill pulled one from his desk drawer and set it on the file. You give it to him, he said, and make sure he understands we don't joke about this. I picked up the card, felt the smooth laminated surface, read the rules I'd memorized years ago. 9 simple sentences that had kept me alive when smarter, stronger, younger men had disappeared. What if he doesn't believe it? I asked. Bill looked at me with those tired, weathered eyes that had seen too many winters. Then he'll learn, he said. Same way you did, same way we all did. He stood up, signaling the conversation was over. He starts Monday, 6 a.m. orientation. You're his trainer. I pocketed the card and walked out, already knowing how this was going to end. Derek showed up at 5:47 a.m. on Monday, 13 minutes early, which I appreciated. He was taller than his photo suggested, maybe 6'2", with the kind of military posture that doesn't fade even after you've been out for a while. He shook my hand firmly, made eye contact, called me sir even though I told him Jack was fine. Bill did the paperwork, W-4s, insurance forms, emergency contacts. Then he slid the laminated card across the desk without ceremony, like it was a cafeteria menu. These are the Route 9 operational guidelines, Bill said. Read them, memorize them, follow them. Derek picked up the card, and I watched his face as he read. His expression shifted from professional interest to confusion to something that might have been amusement. Are you serious? Derek asked, looking up at Bill. Completely. This reads like a creepypasta. Bill didn't smile. Read it out loud.
Derek glanced at me, then back at the card. He cleared his throat. Rule 1. Never stop between mile markers 23 and 51, even for emergencies. He paused. Even for emergencies? Keep reading, Bill said. Rule 2. If you see someone standing in the road, do not slow down. Derek's eyebrows went up. That can't be legal. Rule 3, Bill prompted. Derek sighed and continued. Rule 3. Keep your radio on channel 7 at all times. Do not respond to voices on other channels. He looked up. Why would keep going? Rule 4. If your engine stalls between markers 23 and 51, stay in the cab. Do not exit for any reason. Derek was reading faster now, his tone shifting toward incredulity. Rule 5. Ignore knocking on your cab doors or windows. Rule 6. Do not plow after 10 p.m. during a new moon. Rule 7. If you see lights that aren't headlights, turn yours off and count to 60 before proceeding. He stopped and looked at Bill, then at me. Is this a hazing thing? Because I've been through actual hazing and this is… Rule 8, Bill interrupted. Derek's jaw tightened, but he kept reading. Rule 8. Never bring anyone else in your cab on Route 9. Rule 9. If you hear your name called from outside, it's not real. He set the card down on the desk and crossed his arms. Okay, I'll bite. What's this really about?
Bill leaned forward, his maimed left hand resting on the desk where Derek couldn't miss it. It's about keeping you alive, Bill said quietly. Those rules exist for a reason. You don't need to understand the reason. You don't need to believe in the reason. You just need to follow them. No exceptions, no improvising, no second guessing. But what happens if… No exceptions, Bill repeated. His voice had gone cold. Jack here has been driving Route 9 for 19 years. He's alive because he follows the rules. 7 drivers who didn't follow them aren't here anymore. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Derek looked at me for confirmation. I nodded. Follow the rules, I said. That's all you need to know. Derek stared at the card for a long moment. Then he picked it up, slipped it into his wallet, and said the words I'd heard a dozen times before. Okay, if you say so. But I could tell he didn't believe it. Not yet. We spent the rest of that first day in the depot garage while I walked Derek through the equipment. The plows themselves are International Durastar trucks, modified for extreme cold, with engine block heaters, auxiliary batteries, and cab heaters that could turn the interior into a sauna even when it's minus 40 outside. The blades are 12 feet wide, hydraulically controlled, with enough weight to scrape down to bare asphalt if you drop them right. Derek knew his way around heavy equipment. He checked the fluid levels without being asked, tested the hydraulics, inspected the blade edges for damage. His military training showed. He was methodical, efficient, didn't waste time. You ever driven in whiteout conditions? I asked. Germany got pretty bad, he said.
Nothing like Alaska, I'm sure, but I've been in storms where you couldn't see past the hood. Out here it's different. You're not just driving blind, you're alone. No other traffic most of the time. No streetlights, no buildings, just you, the road, and whatever the storm decides to throw at you. He nodded, still inspecting the plow's undercarriage. The rules, he said after a moment, are they actually enforced, or is it more like strong suggestions? I'd been waiting for this question. They're not enforced, I said. Nobody's gonna write you up for breaking them. Nobody's gonna fire you. Then why? Because if you break them, you might not come back. Derek straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag. He gave me that same confident smile from his file photo. Come on, Jack, you seem like a reasonable guy. What's really going on? Is it wildlife? Bears? Moose on the road? Something like that, I said, which was true enough. So why not just say watch out for animals instead of all this cryptic stuff about knocking and voices? I could have told him then, could have explained what Bill had explained to me 19 years ago, what Tommy Canuck had tried to explain to Bill 30 years before that. But I'd learned that some things can't be taught, only experienced. You'll understand when you've been out there, I said instead. Derek didn't push it. We finished the inspection, ran through the radio protocols, reviewed the weather monitoring systems. He was a quick study. By the end of the day, he could operate the plow as well as drivers who'd been doing it for seasons. Bill joined us in the garage around 5, just as the winter darkness was settling in.
"Tomorrow you do a ride-along with Jack," Bill said to Derek. "He drives, you observe. You ask questions, you take notes, you watch how he handles the route." "Understood," Derek said. Bill turned to leave, then stopped. "Derek." "Yes, sir?" "The rules aren't a joke. They're not hazing. They're not metaphors." Bill's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "I lost 2 fingers on Route 9 because I thought I knew better. Jack lost his best friend out there because the guy didn't believe the rules applied to him. Tommy Canuck doesn't talk about what he lost, but whatever it was enough to make a man who's face-down grizzlies refuse to drive Route 9 after dark anymore." Derek's smile faded. "I'm not trying to scare you," Bill continued. "I'm trying to keep you alive. There are things on that road that don't make sense, things that don't follow the rules of normal reality. You can choose not to believe in them, that's your right. But if you value your life, you'll follow the rules anyway." The garage was quiet, except for the hum of the overhead heaters. "Okay," Derek said finally. His voice was different now, not quite convinced, but no longer dismissive. "I'll follow them." Bill nodded and left. Derek looked at me. "Has anyone ever explained what actually happens if you break the rules?" I thought about the empty plows we'd found over the years, the ones with engines still running, doors open, no drivers, the search parties that never found bodies, the state troopers who stopped asking questions after a while because the answers never made sense. "No," I said, "because nobody who's broken them has ever come back to tell us." Derek's first solo run on Route 9 was scheduled for a Wednesday morning, 10 days after he started. The weather forecast was about as good as it gets in January. Light snow, winds under 15 miles per hour, visibility decent. Bill approved the run. I'd follow 20 minutes behind in my own plow, standard protocol for rookies. Derek rolled out at 6:15 a.m., right on schedule. I watched his taillights disappear into the pre-dawn darkness, then finished my coffee and did my own pre-flight checks. By the time I hit the road, he was already reporting in from mile marker 12. "Road conditions good," his voice crackled over channel 7. "Light accumulation, maybe 4 inches. Blades cutting clean." "Copy that," I replied. "Stay sharp." The first 23 miles of Route 9 are easy. The road runs through relatively open terrain, following an old railroad grade that keeps the gradient manageable. You get mountains on both sides, sure, but there's distance, space. You don't feel hemmed in. Mile marker 23 is where everything changes. The road enters the pass proper, and the mountains close in like jaws. The forest gets denser, the shadows deeper. Even in daylight, it feels darker there, like the trees are filtering out more than just sunlight. I heard Derek's voice at 7:02 a.m., right as he crossed the threshold. Passing mile marker 23, entering the, what did Bill call it? The exclusion zone? "That's right," I said. "Remember the rules." There was a pause, then Derek's voice came back with that hint of cocky humor I'd come to expect. "Should I be scared, Jack?" "Just focus on the road." "Come on, it's a beautiful morning. Visibility's great. I can see probably 100 yards ahead." "If there's something spooky out here, it's sleeping in." I didn't respond. I'd learned a long time ago that Route 9 doesn't perform on demand. Sometimes you can drive through the exclusion zone 100 times and never see anything stranger than a moose. Other times are different. I reached mile marker 23 15 minutes after Derek passed it. The temperature had dropped 5 degrees in the last 2 miles, which was normal through the pass. My headlights caught the reflective paint on the marker, that familiar white on green sign that marked the beginning of the zone where the rules mattered most. I checked my mirrors out of habit. Nothing but darkness and falling snow behind me. Derek's voice came through again at mile marker 35. Halfway through, still no ghosts. At mile marker 42, road's getting a little drifted here, but nothing the blade can't handle. At mile marker 51,
And we're clear. Exclusion zone complete. That wasn't so bad, Jack. You guys really oversell this. I felt the familiar mix of relief and irritation. Relief that he'd made it through. Irritation that he still didn't understand how lucky he'd gotten. "Good work," I said simply. "See you at the turnaround." We met up at the Copper Valley Depot, a smaller facility on the east end of Route 9. Derek was out of his cab, stretching his legs, looking pleased with himself. "So, when does the scary stuff start?" he asked as I climbed down from my plow. "You got lucky. The road was calm today." "Or," Derek countered, "there's nothing actually out there and you guys have built this whole mythology around a stretch of road that's just a road." I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him about the times I'd seen things at mile marker 38 that couldn't exist. About the knocking that circled my cab for 30 minutes while my engine was dead. About the voices that sounded so much like people I knew that I'd almost answered. But I didn't, because Bill was right. Some things can't be taught. "Maybe," I said instead, "maybe it's all in our heads." Derek grinned. "Don't worry, old-timer. I'll keep following your spooky rules. Can't hurt, right?" We did the return run an hour later. Derek in front again, me trailing behind. The sun was up by then, weak winter light filtering through the clouds. The exclusion zone looked almost peaceful in the pale gray dawn. Back at the depot, Derek was jubilant. He'd conquered Route 9 on his first solo run. In his mind, he'd proven the rules were superstition. I saw Bill watching from the office window, his face grim as stone. He caught my eye and shook his head slowly. We both knew. Derek had been tested and found wanting. He didn't respect the road. And on Route 9, that kind of arrogance gets people killed. It was only a matter of time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Derek's confidence, his dismissive grin, the way he'd called me old-timer like the rules were just folklore passed down by superstitious drivers who didn't know any better. I'd been that guy once. 16 years ago, late January, I was 3 years into the job and thought I had Route 9 figured out. I'd driven through blizzards, navigated black ice in total darkness, pulled 12-hour shifts when the snow wouldn't stop. I knew every curve, every grade change, every spot where the road liked to drift.
I thought the rules were bullshit. The night that changed was a Tuesday, new moon, which meant total darkness once he got away from town. A blizzard was rolling in from the coast. The weather service was calling for 8 to 12 inches overnight, with winds gusting to 40 miles per hour. Bill told me not to go out. "It's a new moon," he said, tapping Rule 6 on the laminated card I'd stopped carrying. "You know the protocol." "We've got a stranded motorist at mile marker 38, I argued. "State troopers called it in 20 minutes ago. Some tourist from California. Car went off the road. He's stuck." "Troopers can handle it. They're 2 hours out. I can be there in 45 minutes. Bill's face went hard. "Jack, listen to me very carefully. Do not go out there tonight. That's not a suggestion. That's an order." I should have listened, but I was young and I was stupid, and I thought the rules were just Bill being paranoid. I took my plow out at 9:47 p.m. The storm hit faster than the forecast predicted. By the time I reached mile marker 30, visibility was down to maybe 20 feet. Snow was coming in sideways, building up on the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. The temperature had dropped to 28 below. I radioed dispatch. "I'm turning back. Can't see anything out here." No response. Just static. I tried again. Nothing. That should have been my first warning. I kept going anyway, telling myself I was already past mile marker 23, might as well push through to 38, grab the stranded motorist, and get out. The troopers could tow his car in the morning. At mile marker 35, my engine started to sputter. At mile marker 42, it died completely. The cab went silent except for the wind screaming outside. My headlights flickered once, twice, then went dark. Even the dashboard lights died.
I sat there in total blackness, my breath fogging in the sudden cold as the heater stopped blowing. I tried the ignition. Click. Nothing. Rule 4 echoed in my head. If your engine stalls between markers 23 and 51, stay in the cab. Do not exit for any reason. I stayed. The cold came fast. Without the heater, the temperature inside the cab started dropping immediately. I pulled my coat tighter, put on my gloves, tried the radio again, even though I knew it was dead. That's when the knocking started. 3 slow knocks on the driver's side door. Deliberate, purposeful. I turned my head, saw nothing but darkness beyond the window. The snow was too thick, the night too complete. 3 more knocks, same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Then 3 knocks on the passenger side. Then the back window. Then the driver's side again. It was circling the cab. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I wanted to turn on my flashlight, wanted to see what was out there. But some instinct, some deep primal part of my brain told me that would be a mistake. The knocking continued. Slow, methodical, moving around the truck in a steady pattern. Whatever was out there wasn't in a hurry. Then it stopped. For maybe 30 seconds, there was nothing but the wind and the rattle of snow against metal. Then I heard my wife's voice. "Jack, baby, are you in there?" It was perfect. Every inflection, every tiny detail. The way she called me baby when she was worried. The slight rasp in her voice from the cigarettes she'd been trying to quit. "Jack, I'm freezing out here. Please open the door." My hand actually moved toward the door handle. Then I remembered. My wife was in Anchorage, 200 miles away. I'd talked to her on the phone 3 hours ago. She was home, safe, watching TV. This wasn't her. Rule 9. If you hear your name called from outside, it's not real. "Please, Jack, I'm so cold." The voice was starting to change, getting higher, more desperate, less like my wife and more like something imitating her badly, like a recording played at the wrong speed. "Jack! Jack! Open the door, Jack! Open it!" The pounding started again, harder now. The whole cab was shaking. I pressed myself back against the seat, hands clenched into fists, every muscle locked tight. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Complete silence. 30 minutes later, my engine turned over on its own. The headlights came back on, the heater roared to life. I drove to mile marker 38 on autopilot. The stranded motorist's car was there, buried in snow. The driver's door was open. The interior light was still on, battery somehow not dead. No footprints leading away, no body inside. Just an empty car, keys still in the ignition, a half-eaten sandwich on the passenger seat. The state troopers never found him, and I never told them what I heard that night, and I never broke the rules again. 3 days after Derek's successful first run, the weather changed. It started with the barometric pressure. I'd learned over the years to watch the gauge in the depot office, an old analog instrument Bill kept mounted on the wall, despite having digital readouts on every computer.
When the needle started dropping fast, bad things were coming. On Saturday morning, the needle dropped half an inch in 3 hours. By noon, the temperature had plummeted from a relatively balmy 12 degrees to minus 35. The wind picked up, coming down from the mountains in gusts that rattled the depot windows. The sky turned that particular shade of gray that means heavy snow is loading up in the clouds, just waiting to dump. Tommy Canuck came into the break room while I was studying the forecast. He's 63, built like a fire plug, with a face carved from weathered leather and eyes that have seen things he'll never talk about. He poured himself coffee, sat down across from me, and said nothing for a full minute. Finally, "It's waking up." I glanced at the pressure gauge. The needle was still falling. "Yeah," I said. "The kid ready?" "No." Tommy nodded slowly, like that was exactly what he'd expected to hear. "You tell Bill?" "I'll talk to him this afternoon." Tommy sipped his coffee. Lost a good man in '94 to a night like this. Full moon that time, not new, but the pressure dropped just like this. He was experienced. 8 years on Route 9. Thought he understood. He stood up, dumped the rest of his coffee in the sink. They never found enough of him to bury. I found Bill in his office an hour later, going through maintenance logs. He looked up when I knocked, and I could tell from his expression he already knew what I was going to say. "Keep an eye on the kid," I said. "It's going to be active tonight." Bill set down his pen. "How active?" "Pressure's down to 29.
1 and still dropping. Temperatures in free fall. We've got a new moon in 4 days. If this storm builds the way I think it will, I'll pull him off the schedule." He'll ask why. Then I'll tell him equipment maintenance, radiator flush, something. I shook my head. He needs to know, Bill. He needs to understand what's actually out there. Bill leaned back in his chair, and for a moment he looked every one of his 62 years. The fluorescent lights made the scar tissue on his left hand stand out in sharp relief. Those 2 missing fingers he never talked about. "You want to tell him the truth?" Bill asked quietly. "You want to sit him down and explain that there's something on Route 9 that's been there longer than the road, longer than the state, maybe longer than the people who named it? You want to tell him it hunts during storms, that it can make engines fail and voices sound real and men vanish without a trace?" "Yes." "And you think he'll believe you?" I didn't answer. Bill stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the first snow was starting to fall, thick flakes that would pile up fast in this cold. "I tried telling the truth once," Bill said, "back in '89. New driver, smart kid, engineer from Fairbanks. I sat him down and explained everything. The Athabascan stories, the construction deaths, the disappearances. Showed him the files, the incident reports, everything. What happened? He quit on the spot, said I was insane, filed a complaint with the state, said I was creating a hostile work environment with paranoid delusions. Nearly cost me my job." Bill turned back to face me. "The rules work because people follow them without knowing why. The moment you try to explain, the moment you give it a name and a shape, people's brains reject it. It's too big, too impossible. They can follow arbitrary rules. They can't accept that something like that exists. So we just let Derek stumble into it blind? We give him the same chance we all got," Bill said. "We give him the rules, we warn him they're important, and we hope he's smart enough to listen." He pulled Derek's schedule off the wall. "But not tonight. Tonight, he stays home." Outside, the snow was falling harder. The wind was picking up. And somewhere out there on Route 9, between mile markers 23 and 51, something ancient was stirring. I could feel it in my bones. Derek's 3rd week started on a Monday that felt wrong from the moment I woke up. The storm Bill had been worried about never materialized, or rather, it materialized differently. Instead of the predicted blizzard, we got something worse: clear skies and brutal cold. -42 at sunrise. The kind of cold that makes the air itself feel solid, where your breath freezes in your lungs and exposed skin goes numb in seconds. Derek was scheduled for night shift. I wasn't supposed to be out there with him. My shift ended at 6, but something made me volunteer to run a second route. Bill gave me a long look when I offered, then nodded. "Stay on Channel 7, he said to both of us. "Weather Service is predicting aurora activity tonight. Radio interference is possible." Derek rolled out at 8:15 p.m. I followed 15 minutes later. The road was eerily beautiful that night. The full moon had passed 3 days earlier, but there was still enough light to see by, and with the clear sky, the stars were overwhelming. The kind of night that makes you understand why ancient people thought the heavens were full of gods. But the cold was murderous. My thermometer read -45 when I hit mile marker 15. The kind of cold where metal becomes brittle, where hydraulic fluid thickens, where batteries die without warning. I kept my engine RPMs high, kept the heater blasting, and tried not to think about what would happen if my plow stalled in this temperature. Derek's voice came through Channel 7 at 8:47 p.m., right on schedule. Mile marker 30, road conditions good. It's cold as hell out here though. Literally can't feel my toes even with the heater maxed. Copy that, I replied. Keep moving, don't stop for anything. Roger. 5 minutes of silence. Normal. He was approaching the deepest part of the exclusion zone, where the mountains pressed in closest and the forest became dense enough to block out the stars. Then my radio crackled, but not on Channel 7. It was Channel 4. Derek's voice came through, slightly distorted. Jack, you there? I'm switching to Channel 4, getting some weird interference on 7. My hand shot to the radio. Derek, stay on Channel 7, that's the rule. Silence. Then, again on Channel 4. Come on, man, it's clearer here. I can barely hear you on 7. My blood went cold. I was hearing Derek's voice on Channel 4, but Derek should be on Channel 7, and I hadn't heard any interference on 7. His last transmission had been crystal clear. I grabbed the handset, made sure I was on Channel 7, and keyed it.
Derek, do not respond to Channel 4. Stay on 7. Do you copy? Static. Wind. The soft crackle of cosmic radiation. Then Derek's voice, on Channel 4 again. Jack, seriously, what's the big deal? It's just a different frequency. It sounded exactly like him. Same tone, same cadence, same hint of frustration. But I knew with absolute certainty it wasn't Derek talking. It was something else, something that had learned his voice, using the radio to reach out. Rule 3. Keep your radio on Channel 7 at all times. Do not respond to voices on other channels. I switched to Channel 4 against every instinct and shouted into the handset, "This is not Derek. Derek, if you can hear me, stay on Channel 7. The voice on Channel 4 changed. It was still Derek's voice, but wrong now. Too smooth, too calm. Why are you being paranoid, Jack? It's just me. Let's just talk on 4 where the signal's better. I switched back to Channel 7, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the radio. Derek, answer me on 7. Silence. Agonizing, terrible silence. I was doing 60 now, pushing my plow harder than I should on a road this treacherous, trying to close the distance between us. The cold was forgotten. The road conditions were forgotten. All I could think about was Derek's plow somewhere ahead of me in the darkness, and whether he was still in it. Then, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably less than a minute, Derek's voice crackled through on Channel 7, shaky, uncertain, scared. Jack, I'm on 7. I'm here. What the hell was that? Relief hit me so hard I nearly sobbed.
That, I said, forcing my voice steady, is why we stay on Channel 7. Do not, under any circumstances, switch channels. Do you understand me? I didn't switch channels, Derek said, and I could hear the fear in his voice now, the cocky confidence completely gone. I've been on 7 this whole time, but I heard someone talking to me on 4. It sounded like you. It said to switch over, that 7 was compromised. It wasn't me. Then what was it? I stared out at the darkness, at the wall of spruce trees pressing in on both sides of the road, at the shadows that seemed deeper than they should be. I don't know, I lied. But you did the right thing by not switching. Keep moving, don't stop. And Derek? Yeah? Welcome to Route 9. 1 week later, Derek broke rule number 2. The weather had been building all day. Not the sudden, violent storms that sometimes hit the pass, but the slow, grinding kind of blizzard that settles in and doesn't leave. By evening, we had 8 inches of new snow, and it was still coming down hard, thick flakes that swirled in the headlights like static. Bill wanted to close Route 9 for the night. Visibility's down to maybe 30 feet, he said, studying the weather reports. Winds gusting to 40. This is exactly the kind of night we don't send people out there.
but the state highway department overruled him. There was a medical emergency in Copper Valley, a heart attack. Ambulance needed to get through. The road had to stay open. Derek volunteered to take the run. "I can handle it," he said. "I've been out there in bad weather before." That was true. Since the radio incident, Derek had been different, more careful, more respectful of the rules. He'd stopped making jokes about the exclusion zone, stopped questioning the protocols. The encounter on Channel 4 had shaken him, made him understand that there were things on Route 9 he didn't comprehend. But understanding and believing are different things. I should have gone with him, should have insisted on a 2-truck convoy. But Derek had been doing well, following the rules, and I hoped, that he'd learned enough to handle whatever the road threw at him. I was wrong. Derek rolled out at 9:30 p.m. I stayed at the depot, monitoring the radio, tracking his progress through the storm. His voice came through Channel 7 every 10 minutes, professional and calm. Mile marker 15, roads drifting but manageable. Mile marker 20, visibility poor but steady progress. Mile marker 25, entering exclusion zone, following protocols. At 10:17 p.m., his voice came through again, but something was different, tighter, uncertain. "Jack, there's someone in the road." My coffee cup hit the floor. "What's your location?" I asked, already reaching for my coat. "Mile marker 45. There's a person standing in the middle of the road. They're not moving." Rule number 2 flashed through my mind. If you see someone standing in the road, do not slow down. "Derek, listen to me very carefully," I said, pulling on my boots. "Do not stop. Do not slow down. Drive through it." "But Jack, it's a person. They're just standing there. If I don't stop, I'm going to hit them." "It's not a person," I said, grabbing my keys. "Follow Rule 2. Do not slow down." There was a pause. I could hear the wind through his radio, the rumble of his engine, the scrape of his plow blade against asphalt. "I can see them clearly now," Derek said. "It's a woman. She's wearing a white coat. She's not moving out of the way." I was running for my plow now, Bill right behind me. "Derek, it is not a woman," I shouted into the radio. "It's rule number 2. Drive through it." "I can't just run someone over." I heard his engine note change. He was slowing down. "Derek, no!" But it was too late. Through the static, I heard his brakes engage, heard the hiss of air brakes, heard his plow come to a stop. "She's still there," Derek said, his voice quiet now, almost hypnotized. "She's looking right at me. She looks hurt. Like she needs help." I was in my cab now, engine turning over, headlights cutting through the snow. "Derek, do not exit your vehicle. Do not open your door. Do not. I'm going to see if she's okay." "Derek!" The radio went silent. I drove faster than I'd ever driven on Route 9, pushing my plow through the storm at speeds that should have gotten me killed. The snow was so thick I could barely see the road markers, but I knew every curve, every grade change, every pothole. Mile marker 40, mile marker 42, mile marker 44. At mile marker 45, I saw his taillights. Derek's plow sat in the middle of the road, engine running, headlights on, hazard lights blinking. The driver's door was open, swinging slightly in the wind. No Derek. I pulled up behind him, grabbed my flashlight, and violated rule number 4. I got out of my cab. The cold hit me like a physical blow. Minus 38 degrees, with a wind chill that made it feel like minus 60. My breath froze in my lungs. My flashlight beam barely penetrated the swirling snow. I circled Derek's plow, calling his name. No response. No footprints in the snow leading away from the cab. The storm was filling them in as fast as they could be made, but there should have been some trace, some indication of which direction he'd gone. Nothing. I climbed into his cab. His coat was still on the seat. His thermos was on the dashboard, still warm.
The radio was tuned to channel 7, volume turned up. Then I heard it, faint and distant, muffled by the storm. "Derek, help! I'm stuck!" It was coming from the tree line, maybe 50 yards into the forest. Rule number 9 echoed in my head. If you hear your name called from outside, it's not real. But it sounded so much like Derek, so desperate, so real. "Jack, please, I'm freezing!" I climbed back into my own plow and reached for the radio. I sat in my cab for 30 seconds, engine idling, listening to Derek's voice calling from the darkness. "Jack, I can't find the truck! Help me!" Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get out, to follow that voice, to find Derek and bring him back. But 19 years on Route 9 had taught me that instincts could get you killed. I keyed the radio, hands shaking from more than just the cold. "Base, this is Jack. I need immediate assistance at mile marker 45. Bill's voice came back immediately. He'd been monitoring. "What's your situation?" "Derek's missing."
His plow is here, engine running, door open, no sign of him. A pause. Then, any activity? I can hear his voice calling from the tree line, but it's Rule 9. Another pause, longer this time. "Jack, listen to me. Do not leave your vehicle. Do not follow the voice. I'm sending Tommy with backup, but he's 40 minutes out in this weather." "Copy that." But as I set down the radio, Derek's voice came again, closer now, more desperate. "Jack, please, I'm hurt. I can see your lights." I looked toward the tree line, nothing but swirling snow and darkness. But the voice was so clear, so real. It sounded exactly like Derek. Not the mimicry I'd heard on Channel 4, but perfect, down to the slight Oregon accent he tried to hide. "I'm bleeding, Jack. I need help." My hand moved toward the door handle. Then I stopped, because I remembered something Derek had said during his first week, something that had stuck with me. He'd mentioned that he was type O negative, universal donor. He was proud of it, said he donated blood regularly back in Oregon. But the voice calling from the trees had just said, "I'm bleeding." Derek would have said, "I'm bleeding out," or "I'm losing blood." He was medically trained from his army days. He knew the terminology. This thing, whatever it was close, but it wasn't perfect. I grabbed the radio again. "Base, it's getting more aggressive. The mimicry is improving." "Hold your position," Bill said. "Tommy's en route." The voice changed tactics. "Jack, why won't you help me? I followed the rules. I did everything right. Please don't leave me out here." That one almost got me. The hurt in the voice, the betrayal. It sounded so much like Derek that for a moment I actually believed it was him, that somehow he'd survived whatever had taken him from his cab. But then I remembered. Derek hadn't followed the rules. He'd stopped for something in the road. He'd broken rule number 2. I turned up my radio volume and tried to focus on anything other than the voice. The storm was getting worse. Snow was piling up against my windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. The temperature gauge showed -41. Then the knocking started. 3 slow knocks on my driver's side door. The same rhythm I'd heard 16 years ago. I didn't look. I kept my eyes straight ahead, focused on Derek's empty plow, on the swinging door that was slowly filling with snow. 3 knocks on the passenger side, then the back window. It was circling my cab, just like before. But this time, it was different. This time was angry. The knocking became pounding. The whole truck shook with each impact. Whatever was out there was stronger than it had been 16 years ago. Or maybe it was just hungrier. Derek's voice came again, but it was wrong now, distorted, like a recording played at the wrong speed. "Jack, Jack, why won't you help me, Jack? I'm your friend, Jack. Open the door, Jack." The pounding intensified. My windows started to flex inward with each impact.
I could hear metal creaking, could feel the truck rocking on its suspension. Then, suddenly, it stopped. Complete silence, except for the wind and the idle of my engine. I waited. 1 minute. 2. 5. My radio crackled. "Jack, this is Tommy. I'm at mile marker 40. What's your status?" I'd never been so happy to hear another human voice. "Still here. It's been active, but it stopped about 5 minutes ago. I'm coming up on you now. I can see your lights." Tommy's headlights appeared through the storm, cutting through the snow like a lifeline. His plow pulled up beside mine, and I saw his weathered face through his windshield. He gestured for me to stay put, then got out of his cab. Tommy Canuck had been dealing with Route 9 longer than anyone. If there was a way to safely search for Derek, he'd know it. He circled both plows with a flashlight, checking for tracks, for signs, for anything that might tell us what had happened. Then he climbed back into his cab and radioed me. "No tracks leading away from his truck," Tommy said. "Whatever took him didn't leave footprints. So what do? We wait for the state troopers. We file a report. We tell them Derek stopped for a stranded motorist and disappeared in the storm. That's it." Tommy's voice was tired, resigned. "That's it. Same story we've told 12 times before." I looked at Derek's plow one more time. The door was still open, snow piling up on the driver's seat. His thermos was probably frozen solid by now. "He was a good kid," I said. "Yeah," Tommy replied. "They usually are." We sat there in our cabs, engines running, waiting for the troopers who would ask questions we couldn't answer and file reports that would never make sense. And somewhere in the darkness beyond our headlights, something that wasn't Derek was probably still calling my name. The Alaska State Troopers arrived at 1:47 a.m. 2 vehicles, a patrol car driven by Trooper Sarah Martinez, and a search and rescue coordinator named Dave Hutchins in a modified pickup truck loaded with emergency equipment. They'd made good time considering the weather, but the storm was finally starting to ease. I'd been sitting in my cab for over 3 hours by then, keeping the engine running, watching Derek's plow slowly disappear under the accumulating snow. Tommy had stayed with me the whole time, our 2 trucks forming a small island of light in the vast darkness of Route 9. Trooper Martinez was young, maybe late 20s, with the kind of crisp professionalism that told me she was still new enough to believe every case could be solved. She approached my cab with a notebook and a flashlight, her breath steaming in the frigid air. "Mr. Fremont, I'm Trooper Martinez. Can you tell me what happened here tonight?" I'd rehearsed this story in my head for 3 hours. Keep it simple. Keep it believable. Don't mention the voices or the knocking or the thing that circled my cab. "Derek Holt was running a solo plow route," I said. "I was following about 15 minutes behind as backup. When I reached mile marker 45, I found his truck like this, engine running, door open, no sign of Derek." "Did you have radio contact with him before he disappeared?" "Yes, he reported seeing someone in the road, said he was going to check if they needed help." Martinez wrote this down. "Someone in the road? In this weather?" "That's what he said. I told him not to stop, but..." I shrugged. Derek was a good kid. If he thought someone needed help, he'd help them. "And you didn't see this person when you arrived?" "No, just Derek's truck." Hutchins joined us, having finished his preliminary examination of Derek's plow. He was older, maybe 50, with the kind of weathered face that comes from years of outdoor rescue work. "No signs of struggle," he reported to Martinez. "Personal effects are still in the cab: wallet, keys, thermos. His coat's on the seat, which is concerning given the temperature." "Any tracks leading away from the vehicle?" "Storm's been too heavy. If there were tracks, they're long gone now." Martinez turned back to me. "Mr. Fremont, in your professional opinion, what do you think happened?" I chose my words carefully. Derek was ex-military, but he was new to Alaska winters. If he got out to help someone and became disoriented in the storm, hypothermia can set in fast in these conditions. People make poor decisions when they're cold and scared. "Any tracks leading away from the vehicle?" "Storm's been too heavy. If there were tracks, they're long gone now." Martinez turned back to me. "Mr. Fremont, in your professional opinion, what do you think happened?"
I chose my words carefully. Derek was ex-military, but he was new to Alaska winters. If he got out to help someone and became disoriented in the storm, hypothermia can set in fast in these conditions. People make poor decisions when they're cold and scared. It was a plausible explanation. It happened every winter. People got lost in storms, wandered away from safety, succumbed to the cold. Their bodies usually turned up in the spring thaw. "We'll organize a search at first light," Hutchins said. "Get some volunteers, maybe a helicopter if the weather clears. But I have to be honest, in conditions like this, after this much time..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Martinez interviewed Tommy next, then spent another hour documenting the scene, taking photographs, measuring distances. Professional, thorough, completely useless. Because how do you investigate something that doesn't leave evidence? How do you search for someone who was taken by something that doesn't exist in any official capacity? At 4:30 a.m., they called off the immediate search. Derek's plow was towed back to the depot. The road was closed until morning. I gave Martinez my contact information and promised to be available for follow-up questions. As the troopers were leaving, Martinez pulled me aside. "Mr. Fremont, I've been reviewing the incident reports for this stretch of road. This is the third plow driver to go missing on Route 9 in the last 10 years. That seems like more than coincidence." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my expression neutral. "It's dangerous work, especially in winter." "The pattern is always the same," she continued. "Driver reports seeing someone in the road. Driver stops to help. Driver disappears. Vehicle found running. Door open. No body ever recovered." I said nothing. "Is there something about this road I should know? Something that's not in the official reports?" For a moment, I considered telling her everything. About the rules, about the thing that hunted during storms, about the voices that could mimic anyone perfectly. But I could see it in her eyes, that rational, logical mindset that would reject anything that didn't fit into neat categories. "It's a dangerous road," I said finally. "People make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are fatal." Martinez studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "If you think of anything else, call me." She handed me her card and walked back to her patrol car. I watched their taillights disappear into the storm, carrying with them the official version of Derek's disappearance. The truth would stay on Route 9, where it belonged. 3 days after the search was called off, I found myself standing outside Bill's office at 7:30 p.m., long after the depot had officially closed. The search teams had combed through 50 square miles of wilderness around mile marker 45. They'd used helicopters, thermal imaging, search dogs, volunteers on snowshoes. They'd found nothing. Not a footprint, not a piece of clothing, not a single trace that Derek Holt had ever existed beyond his empty plow. The official conclusion was exposure and hypothermia, case closed. But I couldn't let it go. I knocked on Bill's door. No answer. I tried the handle, unlocked. Bill was sitting behind his desk in the dark, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him and a glass in his hand. I'd worked with Bill for 19 years and had never seen him drink. "Jack," he said without looking up, "figured you'd be by eventually." I closed the door behind me and sat down across from his desk. The office smelled like alcohol and old coffee and something else. Defeat, maybe. "Tell me the truth," I said. "All of it." Bill took a long sip from his glass, then set it down with deliberate care. "You sure you want to know? Because once I tell you, you can't unknow it. And knowing makes it harder to sleep at night." "I'm sure." Bill opened his desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder, thick with papers and photographs. He set it on the desk between us. "Route 9 was built in 1968, he began, his voice steady despite the alcohol. State wanted a direct connection between Whittier and Copper Valley, figured it would boost tourism and freight traffic. The original survey team recommended a route that went around the mountains, added maybe 30 miles, but avoided the worst terrain. He opened the folder, pulled out a yellowed map. But that route would have cost twice as much and taken 3 times as long to build, so the state overruled the surveyors and ordered the road built straight through the pass." "Through Athabascan land," I said. Bill nodded. "The tribal elders tried to stop it,
filed lawsuits, organized protests, even offered to buy the land from the state at above market value. They said the area was sacred, that there were things in those mountains that should be left alone. He pulled out a newspaper clipping from 1967. The headline read, "Native Superstitions Delay Highway Project." The state ignored them. Construction started in spring of '68. By October, 3 workers were dead. Bill spread out a series of incident reports, each one stamped with official seals and signatures. First death was a bulldozer operator named Mike Kowalski. Found his machine at the bottom of a ravine, but Mike was nowhere near it. They found his body 2 miles away, in the middle of a frozen lake. Coroner said he'd been dead for hours before the bulldozer went over the edge. Accident? That's what they called it. Second death was a surveyor, Janet Mills. She was working alone, mapping elevations near what's now mile marker 38. Her crew found her equipment set up perfectly, measurements half finished, but Janet was gone. They found her 3 days later, hanging from a tree branch 40 feet off the ground. No ladder, no climbing gear, no way she could have gotten up there. Bill's hand was shaking slightly as he reached for his glass. Third death was the worst. Construction foreman named Robert Chen, experienced guy, 20 years in heavy construction. His crew was working late, trying to make up time before winter set in. Around midnight, Chen radioed that he was going to check on a work site near mile marker 45. His truck was found the next morning, engine running, door open, but Chen...
Bill pulled out a photograph, black and white, grainy. It showed what looked like a human figure embedded in the trunk of a massive spruce tree, as if the tree had grown around it. They had to cut down the tree to get him out. Coroner couldn't explain how he'd gotten inside it. The tree showed no signs of damage, no cuts or holes. It was like Chen had been placed inside the trunk while it was growing, then the wood had closed around him. I stared at the photograph, my mouth dry. The state shut down construction for the winter, Bill continued. When they resumed in spring, they brought in a different crew and hired Athabascan guides. The tribal elders agreed to help, but only if certain precautions were taken. The rules. The original rules. There were 17 of them back then, written by the elders based on traditional knowledge about what lived in those mountains. The construction crew followed them religiously. No more deaths. Bill pulled out the original rule sheet, handwritten on birch bark. Road was completed in 1970. First winter, 5 drivers disappeared. The state brought in the elders again, and they revised the rules for modern conditions. 17 became 9, the rules you know. What is it? I asked. What's out there? Bill finished his whiskey and poured another. The Athabascans called it Wendigo-like, but that's not quite right. Wendigo is Algonquian, not Athabascan. Their word for it translates roughly to the hungry wind. Something old, something that feeds on human life force, something that can mimic voices and faces and make people see things that aren't there. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes. The rules work, Jack, but only if people follow them.
And every few years, someone doesn't. I sat in that dark office for another hour, going through the files Bill had kept hidden for decades. Photographs of empty vehicles, missing person reports, incident summaries that all read the same. Driver stopped for unknown reason. Vehicle found abandoned. No body recovered. 12 names over 53 years. Derek made 13. Why do we keep doing this? I asked finally. Why not just close the road? Bill refilled his glass, offered me the bottle. I shook my head. You think I haven't considered that? He said. You think I haven't lost sleep over every single one of these names? He gestured at the files scattered across his desk. But here's the thing, Jack. Route 9 isn't just a convenience. It's a necessity. You close it, and people still need to get between Whittier and Copper Valley. They'll try to go around, take logging roads, mining tracks, trails that aren't maintained or monitored. Or they'll try to cross the pass anyway, in their personal vehicles, without plows clearing the way, without radio contact, without any of the safety protocols we have in place. I thought about that. about families in minivans trying to navigate unplowed mountain roads in blizzards, about truckers taking shortcuts through wilderness areas where no one would find them until spring. We lose 2-3 drivers a year, Bill continued. Tragic, but manageable. We close Route 9 and we'd lose dozens of civilians, families, kids. So we're sacrificial lambs? We're professionals who know the risks and get paid accordingly. And we have the rules. Follow them and you go home every night. It's not perfect, but it's the best solution anyone's come up with. I picked up Derek's file, looked at his photo again. That confident smile, that military bearing, that absolute certainty that he could handle whatever Alaska threw at him. He was a good kid, I said. They usually are. The ones who break the rules, they're usually the ones trying to help. The ones who see someone in trouble and can't just drive past. It's not their fault. It's human nature. Bill closed the folder, locked it back in his desk drawer. So what happens now? I asked. Now you decide. You can quit, walk away, find another job, pretend none of this ever happened. I wouldn't blame you. Or you can stay, knowing what you know, and help me train the next guy. And if I stay, then we do things differently. No more sending people out there blind. No more hoping they'll figure it out before they get themselves killed. I thought about that, about Derek's confusion when he first read the rules, about his dismissive laughter, about how he'd called them creepypasta, about how he died because no one had told him the truth. You want to tell new drivers about it? I want to tell them enough. Not everything. That would just scare them off or make them think we're crazy. But enough so they understand the rules aren't arbitrary. Enough so they know their lives depend on following them. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, Route 9 stretched into the darkness, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the wilderness. Somewhere out there, between mile markers 23 and 51, something ancient was waiting for the next driver to make a mistake. What about the state? What about the official reports? The state doesn't want to know. As long as we keep the road open and the incident rate stays manageable, they're happy to let us handle things our way. Plausible deniability. I turned back to face Bill. If I stay, we do this right. No more sacrificial lambs. No more sending kids out there to learn the hard way. Agreed. And if someone breaks the rules anyway? Bill's face was grim. Then we file the same report we always file, and we hope the next guy is smarter. I thought about Derek one more time, about his confidence, his military training, his fundamental decency that had gotten him killed, about the voice calling my name from the darkness, perfect in every detail except for the small mistakes that had saved my life. I'll stay, I said. Bill nodded, unsurprised. Good. We've got a new driver starting Monday. Former Coast Guard, woman named Kara Sullivan. You'll be her trainer. I shook his hand and walked out into the cold Alaska night, knowing I'd made the right choice. Someone had to guard the guards. Someone had to keep the secret that kept Route 9 operational. And someone had to make sure the next Derek Holt went home alive. Spring came late that year, and with it, Kara Sullivan. She was 34, ex-Coast Guard, with the kind of steady competence that comes from years of dealing with life-or-death situations in harsh conditions. She'd spent 8 years on rescue cutters in the Bering Sea, which meant she understood cold, isolation, and the importance of following protocols even when they didn't make immediate sense. I liked her immediately. On her first day, I took her aside before Bill's official orientation. We sat in the break room with coffee and the laminated rule card between us on the table. Before you read this, I said, I want you to understand something. These aren't suggestions. They're not guidelines. They're not bureaucratic nonsense designed to cover the department's liability. They are the difference between going home to your family and disappearing forever. Kara studied my face, reading the seriousness there. Okay, she said simply. I slid the card across the table. She read it slowly, carefully, without the skepticism or amusement I'd seen from other new drivers.
When she finished, she looked up at me. How many people have died breaking these rules? 13 that we know of, probably more before the rules were written down. What happens if you break them? I thought about Derek's voice calling from the darkness, about the empty plows we'd found over the years, about the thing that circled my cab and pounded on the windows. Something takes you, I said. Something old, something hungry, something that can make you see and hear things that aren't real. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it wants, but I know the rules work. Kara nodded slowly. And if I follow them? Then you'll go home every night. I've been driving Route 9 for 19 years. I've never broken the rules. I'm still here. She folded the card, slipped it into her wallet. I'll follow them, she said, and I believed her. We did her first ride-along on a clear April morning. The snow was melting, revealing the road beneath, and Route 9 looked almost friendly in the spring sunshine. We passed mile marker 23 without incident, drove through the exclusion zone while I pointed out landmarks and explained the radio protocols. At mile marker 38, Kara asked, "Is this where it happens? Where people disappear?" Sometimes. It moves around, but this stretch, between 23 and 51, this is where you need to be most careful. What does it look like? Different things. Sometimes it looks like a person standing in the road. Sometimes it sounds like voices on the radio. Sometimes it's just a feeling, like something's watching you from the trees. We reached mile marker 51, and I felt the familiar relief of leaving the exclusion zone behind. "That wasn't so bad," Kara said. "It's quiet now." Come winter, when the storms roll in and the temperature drops and the nights get long, that's when you'll understand. We drove back in comfortable silence. At the depot, Bill was waiting with paperwork and schedules. Kara would start solo runs the following week. As we were leaving, I pulled her aside one more time. "There's one more rule," I said, "an unofficial one. Rule number 10. "What is it?" "If you break the rules, I can't save you. No one can. The thing out there is older than the road, older than the state, maybe older than the people who named it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it wants. But I know the rules work. Follow them, and you'll go home every night. Break them?" I let the sentence hang. Kara looked back toward Route 9, visible through the depot windows, stretching into the mountains. "I understand," she said. 6 months later, Kara was still driving Route 9. She'd been through her first winter, her first blizzard, her first encounter with whatever lived in the exclusion zone. She followed the rules religiously, never questioned them, never tested them. She was still alive. And somewhere out there, between mile markers 23 and 51, something ancient waited patiently for the next driver who thought they knew better. The rules would keep us safe, as long as we followed them.